Hello, wonderful humans. Thank you for tuning in to the Triple L Network. And if you could take 7 seconds out of your day and do me a big favor, jump over to the Shopify App Store. We just launched our Founders Dash, and we would love a review from you. Thanks so much for being so awesome. Enjoy the show.
Your nerves is tied to you not focusing on the value enough, and you can create more value by being relevant, clear, and well delivered.
All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of your favorite D2C podcast. Today we have a screamer. We brought the king of LTV in from Atlanta, Cooper Camak. We're going to be going to all things LTV, product mix, how you should prep for your Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then Cooper also has some really cool tips from a speaking series he used to host called Speaking Up Your Game. So we're going to get into all that. But first, Milwani in the Avi swag, feeling good, looking good. How are things over in your world?
Good, man. Made an announcement this week. We finally signed the papers. We acquired a company called Coffee Over Cardio. They've been around for a few years now and pretty like influencer led. Some really cool coffee flavors. They have licensing deals with like Dippin' Dots, so we're really excited to kind of utilize that and explore what that means for the brand, and just keep adding to our portfolio. And then I guess in the next couple of weeks we're also launching the pet supplement brand too. So we're getting that prepared, website prepared, lining up influencers, and then yeah, just a lot going on, man. But it's all exciting things, and it's forcing us to grow the team too. So been hiring quite a bit. So
you're building the empire into the triad then. So you got obviously the AV, you got Power Rangers coming up, and now you got a coffee brand. This is exciting stuff.
Yeah,
I'd love to see it.
I think the biggest thing here is like building out all the resources internally so that we can support multiple brands, right? So it's not like we're all doing one thing, right? It's like I have the whole team that I can just plug and play now, you know? So I think that's something maybe we could touch on during this episode, just, you know, hiring and building out the team so that it's easy to fit in, you know, different brands coming in and processes and stuff like that.
I'll definitely add that to the end because I do want to touch on that because I'm a big systems processes guy, but I'm more a results driven guy. However, as you start to hit scale, or to your point, you're bolting on another brand, it can't be chickens with your head cut off, chaos, ad hoc stuff. It's just, one, impossible to keep up that pace, and two, you start to see some diffusion in the system because you're not sharing the learnings, you're not concentrating on the learnings, you're not being able to spread this out across your whole little empire. It becomes siloed and concentrated in one brand. So I love that. Cooper, one, thank you for coming on the show. Two, give people kind of, I guess, the 30-second elevator pitch, who you are, where you've been, what you've done.
Yeah, appreciate it. And thanks for having me on the show, guys. Super honored.
Of course.
And bottom line, 12 years I spent in the Coca Cola system on the CPG train.
Let's go.
While I love that, really the role there was, at the end, was how do we commercialize and deploy analytics in a way that we can get some ROI out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you're going to deploy something for analytics, you need adoption and you need to show a return on investment. So really enjoyed that. And then about a year ago, got an invite to come to Amorous. And we are essentially we're a biotech company based out of California that we monetize the science through molecules that we put in everyday CPG products. So hair care, beauty, skincare.
Wow.
There's about 9 different brands we have in total, and it's been quite a journey. But we are very much in the early stages, but trying to grow those brands as best we can, and really also, as you guys mentioned, trying to prep for the holiday season coming up.
I love that. You have an incredible resume and just a really robust understanding of kind of LTV. And I like how you put it in terms of repeat rate, time to repeat, AOV of repeat. To be fair, I'm not a huge LTV guy, just in the sense of, one, the L is usually very ambiguous, right? Like what some people consider lifetime might be a year, 2 years. Some people are like, oh, it's since the customer's been with me So bring me back to the side of the LTV. How should people be using LTV? How should be people think? And for people, for the listeners, lifetime customer value. Sometimes you'll see it represented like in Klaviyo, they call it CLV, customer lifetime value. But ultimately, how much is this customer worth over their lifetime? Again, I have issues with the lifetime being defined. It's a bit similar to kind of like CAC. Like some people, like CAC is just this really like, people understand the concept, but when you drill down, it becomes challenging to compare because some people have an all-in CAC. Some people only include X or Y. Anyways, I'm out in the weeds now. Back to the LTV. How should people think of LTV, and what are the inputs that you see that are useful to track and try and push forward when you think about LTV as a metric?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and you're right. A lot of different businesses are going to look at it a lot of different ways. And so the way that we're looking at it today is we've got kind of that 90-day, 180-day, 360-day, 365-day LTV, and we take those snapshots and we use those to know what our total return is and kind of what that payback period is.
Yep.
And so that's where when you get into the three components of it, right, your repeat rate, because that's key to driving LTV, the time to repeat or the time to the next order, and then the AOV, right, because your acquisition product may be cheaper than what you're asking them to return to. And that's true of a number of our brands, right? You get them in on something less expensive and then they come back for something more expensive, or you're trying to move them along a journey to adopt products that they'll just use over and over again. And so for us, you in the CPG world, you may not get on day one, you may not get like a 2 or a 3 ROAS, but if you can get that knowledge of, hey, in 6 months, we're profitable with our LTV, right? That becomes really impactful for the amount that you invest or that the amount you can invest because you're watching it. And yes, it's going to be delayed because you've got to wait 180 days to really know, but it can start to help you move the ship in the right direction and make some tweaks and some just adjustments you might need to make to really hit it out of the park.
And then in terms of, I really like what you said, because I've seen some times where it's almost flipped too. So that I think there's two different pathways, right? Where sometimes you have this lower price point product, so your new customer AOV is actually going to be smaller than your actual AOV because you're moving people. You might have some sort of on-ramp, and then that on-ramp opens them up into different parts of the brand. Or to your point, where you have this really nice flagship product, but maybe the consumption cycle is a little higher on that flagship product, and then you can get them into other products that are ancillary to the flagship product, but they're still spending money in the brand. When you think of acquisition, retention, reactivation, what's going through your head with these numbers? Like you said, you like to use that kind of 180-day timeline. Is there any other strategies or thought processes that you use when you go into a brand's numbers and you're looking, and when you're trying to decide, I guess, the product mix that you're putting out there? Because I guess Coca Cola is an interesting one because it's a high consumable, right? Where you can build, I think some of the best products are integrated in the behavior loops, where it's like, you're going to take like a DC out of my dead cold hands kind of stuff, or like, okay, I'm ready to work. Now I'm going to have my cup of coffee and stuff like that. If you don't have that behavior loop, do you either A, try and build it, or B, take another strategy?
What I will speak to is on the Amorous side of things and on the brands under Amorous, which for those of you not familiar, these are brands like Biossance, which if you've ever been to Sephora, you'd probably see, or JV in Hair with his Jonathan Van Ness's hairline. These are new brands, relatively speaking, versus Coke that's been around for, centuries. And at this point, like 135, 150 years, something like that. So really, they're trying to build from scratch. And I think when we're doing it right, we're thinking about the entire consumer journey. So not speaking to the specific brand, but if you've got a baby brand and you're pitching them on something that doesn't have to do with the lifetime journey of an infant becoming a toddler, you're biting yourself a little bit, because you want that customer for as long as they're have a little one and as long as they would use the brand. So you do want to think about the whole journey in that. And for a hair care brand, what do you want to start them with that's going to improve their treatment of their hair? And then they want to take care of their hair more because they're seeing the benefits. How do you move them along that journey? And I think Biossance, which is our biggest brand by far, all of those brands are thinking through, how do I walk someone through this journey? And that's when you do it right, is when you consider that on the front end.
Hello, beautiful people. Thank you for tuning into the Triple L Network. This is brought to you by the Founders Dash, our new forever free plan. You can get all of the awesomeness of, or most of the awesomeness of Triple L. So you're going to get a 12-month look back. You're going to get net profit. You're going to get access to the iOS and Android apps, so you can have all your metrics in real time anywhere you want. All you got to do is go to triplel.com/Founders Dash and install the app today and get ready to ride the lightning. Enjoy the show. In terms of the journey, how are you tracking this journey? Is this just looking at essentially customer data over time? Is this GA? Like, what are you doing to triangulate and kind of, I guess, invalidate or validate the theses that you have around these customers?
Yeah, for my team specifically, like we've got a whole paid media team and they get paid the big bucks for a reason. But for our team specifically, we're looking at the product journeys, the customer journeys, how long it takes. So really, we're like almost the LTV team, right? So we're helping you make a better strategy around customer retention. What are you going to bring them back for? What's the time frame of that? One thing that we find really interesting is we don't look at average days to repeat. And that's a big one that I would call out, is we're looking at median days to repeat. Because if you get to 75% of what you would expect someone to repeat, you can now call that person someone you need to reactivate or lost, or however you want to define it. But for us, it's 75%. Like if 75% of the customers have repeated, if they're going to repeat, we know we need to change the strategy for that specific customer, for that specific brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people out there, so you have different slices of stats. An average is obviously an average. Averages can be great, but there's a lot of data hidden within the averages because the outliers will have a lot of impact on said number. The median is going to be the middle of that data set. So 50% of the data points will be below that number. 50% of the data points will be above that number, just to make sure we're bringing everybody along. Melwani, in terms of you guys and like the applicability of LTV, because you guys do have a great consumable and you guys have a lot of products that you can kind of lily pad off of, right? Like you might come in for the collagen and then you might try some fat burn and then you might go into some other Avi product. When you guys are thinking about your acquisition, are you looking at kind of like first product purchased and then you take them down a different journey? Or are you guys kind of like, hey, this is the most productive path for, you know, the majority of customers, and we're going to take people down that path? How do you think of your product mix in terms of acquisition? Because by far, right, collagen has to be the number one on-ramp for everybody, right? Or
it depends on the business too, right? I think it's something where, like, Cooper, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're a brand that can afford to say, hey, I'm going to be profitable in 6 months, then that means obviously that there's either a lot of cash in the bank or there's funding somewhere, right? I guess this like weird time, which is kind of now, where people are now, like people were talking about like CAC to LTV, right? It's like, I almost feel like it was, you almost had to play into that because CACs were just so high post iOS update, post pandemic, et cetera, right? Now you're kind of cutting back to this point where like you're hitting that pre-pandemic levels, like 2019. You almost have to, like, unless you have cash or there's funding, and then in terms of today's like economy, like funding is dried up to a certain degree, you almost have to kind of revert back to like this, all right, I gotta be first order profitable and then consider the LTV, which to me is a more sustainable business for smaller businesses. And once you get into like these massive subscription businesses, like especially like Hims, right? They have the data to say, hey, like I can afford $400 CACs because I know that my person is going to spend $1,200 over the year, right? Or even like Athletic Greens, right? Their LTV is probably massive, right? And they can afford these like massive CACs. So I think when it comes down to what we're doing, I think we can speak for maybe the smaller businesses where it's like, yeah, we haven't led our Series A yet, right? We did a friends and family raise, and then that too was to support like Walmart. So that was like cash for like operations, but like we have to make sure that we're break even or profitable on the first order. Otherwise, like you can't wait 3, 6, 9, 12 months to recoup that, you know? So, I mean, when we do think about the journey, it's, hey, can I be, profitable on the first order? And then, like you said, start, funneling them into the different products that we offer, right? And that was always driven from the community, right? It was always like, all right, I got this, like now I'm into working out. Like, what else can I use to really do that? And that's why we came out with like a pre-workout, right? People were asking for that. How do you supplement that with like a detox product? So you're cleansing your body, right? We've created different pathways for different types of customers. So like you come in on a collagen that's very beauty and wellness oriented. What are other collagen products that they can take, right? We're bringing in, customers on weight loss. What are other weight loss products that they can take further down the line? So yeah, I mean, we're focusing on LTV because like, yes, that's where the majority of the money is going to come from. I think where we start focusing on the LTV is probably a little bit like earlier because like we have to be profitable on the first order and then it's like LTV second, right? Versus I think what Cooper you're saying is you have to map out what that LTV looks like from the beginning because you are spending a little bit more on the first order. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If you're spending the money to try to acquire and you're not profitable, you got to know when you're going to be profitable, right? That's the kicker here for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think what I would encourage anybody in a small business is, yes, Ash, you're spot on. Like you want to be profitable. In that instance, you're not. You've got an opportunity to think about, like you can use these 3 metrics, repeat rate, time to repeat, the AOV. You can use those to help you drive when you're going to be profitable. And if it's super far out, if it's 270 days, that's probably too long, especially in the cash environment we are in, right? It's so tight. So that is for sure. I think it's spot on, right? If you can make your first profit on that first order, it's a home run.
I think there's a level of scalability to that too, right? I think there's going to be a point where businesses have to transition to that model because if you do want to scale to from 50 to 100 million, like you have to ensure that one, recurring revenue is coming in, right? You're never gonna spend a shit ton on Meta and expect to be profitable on the first order. So you have to like at some point lean into that. I just don't know when brands should actually think about doing that because we were there, then we kind of backpedaled, and then now it's like, all right, when do we go back into that? I don't know, Cooper. Like, what do you think? Like, when does that transition happen?
Yeah, Ash, I think it's an interesting point because you think about the cash environment. I mean, you could find cash, 2 years ago with no problem, but now today, like you can't get it. So I think with the economy and the interest rates where they are and the tightness of cash, like you have to think about things differently. And look, I think we're all in agreement that the high interest rates are going to be here for a bit. They're not going to be here forever, but they're going to be here for at least probably another 12 months beyond, right, before they start coming down. If that's the case, you want to try to do everything you can to drive that first order profitability. But if you at least know how long you can hold on, that's really helpful for you to know, okay, we can be at a baseline here and we don't want to spend more than that, but we can get ourselves to this place down the road. And obviously, you're always wanting to try to improve your retention, right? You always want to move those orders a little bit earlier if possible. Now, consumables, it's hard, but if you can move that order a little bit earlier, that's good. But if you don't know when that repeat's really happening, it's really hard to know what you can invest and what that looks like.
I think another problem that brands may be facing, and it's an issue that I'm trying to solve for too, is like you really can't scale if your like AOV is sub 50. Like I just don't think so, right? And like especially for and maybe this is like a category versus category, but like because we're a commodity, because like you can go and buy this product anywhere, right? Amazon, whatever, Walmart. Can I get my AOV up by selling more on the front end and then be profitable, which will obviously increase the time to repurchase versus selling one at a time at like maybe break even or even losing because I just can't get my CAC low enough to do that, right? I think marketers have to also be a little bit more creative in terms of how you get your AOV up. And I do think it's by introducing those products that you may introduce as LTV products, but also maybe introducing them into a bundle on the first order, right? So instead of buying 6 months worth of one product, let's sell 3 products of a 30-day supply at the same price. You know what I mean? So I think those are the nuances that brands have to consider, and it's something that we're also trying to figure out because if somebody's buying 6 months at a time, I'm not seeing them until 6 months later, unless I can bring them in and have them shop another product, So just a couple things to consider there.
Yeah, Ash, I think it's a really good point. And for anybody listening, if they haven't heard the June 12th episode of this podcast, they should go back and listen to it, because that was extremely insightful to listen to 3,000 plus Shopify stores. And I found that to be an incredibly insightful episode. Just hearing, looking at AOVs ranging from 50 to 120. If you're below 50, you're going to be challenged to make yourself profitable with all that's got to go in to your marketing, to your acquisition. So that's definitely something every brand out there should be considering.
I hate the $50 kind of barometer, but I keep bumping up against it, and I don't know if it's quote unquote real, but that's where I see the breaking point as well. And then also, like, people don't realize how expensive shipping and handling is. Like, if your product is any semblance of heavy, like those pick and pack fees, the shipping fees, they just start to eat up your margin. And if you're starting at $50, it starts to get to a place of, one, you totally basically handicap yourself for discounting. Like, there's no way you can discount a $50 product. And so you really either have to have a crazy repeat purchase rate, or your acquisition really has to happen on other channels that aren't paid. But what people forget is, like, that's still cost on the business, right? Like, you might not hit it at the gross level, but it's operational cost of, like, you're paying somebody to make that content. Like, and so there's still, those costs are internalized. They're just internalized in different ways. But now I'm with you, Ash. I think there's a certain aspect of, I think life is just essentially cycles and pendulum swings, right? And there was this huge pendulum swing. The incentive was to grow, and top line growth was easy to get if you were selling $20 bills for $10. Like, okay, cool, but we're still growing. Okay, that's great. But now this kind of era of financial prudence has come upon us. To your point, Ash, I think this is where the real marketers are going to be made, because you just can't throw money at the problem. You have to understand, okay, cool, what is this job to be done? Why are these people buying it? To Cooper's point, at what time can they consume it? Because that's the other thing. I've dealt with a couple brands where the sizing of the product was just off, where they were just selling too much product. And so there's only really two ways to do that. You either redo your products so you can size them down, or you charge way more. But then you get into this weird place of, most people like to consume like in that 30, 60 day kind of arena. Then you kind of get into like a Costco play where, one, there's a great episode on Acquired FM, fantastic podcast on Costco. And Costco's in this weird place where, and weird being good, where they have this negative cash conversion cycle. So ironically, even though this is this massive, massive business, it's actually not that capital intensive, because their suppliers are paying for their POs, where a lot of brands don't have that. And they have to Ash's point, when money comes in, money comes out type of thing. So yeah, I don't know. It's quite the conundrum. I do think that it will make a better set of marketers. And I think businesses with great products will still do well. But there is that siren song of LTV, and you saw Allbirds, you saw all these kind of darlings of D2C get caught up in, like, oh yeah, well, we're just going to get the we'll make it up in LTV, and, candidly, they haven't. That's why I'm so bullish on memberships, where if you can get some way to get some repeatable revenue that you don't have to constantly acquire these people or reactivate these people, I think it gets into a really interesting place. But yeah, I think right now the new playbook is going to be average contribution margin per order, average contribution margin per new customer, and then understanding, okay, cool, how much does it take to reactivate my customers? The other thing that, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Cooper, and then you, Ash, is I think there's a fallacy of people look at all their past or kind of quote unquote returning customers as all the same. And I think if somebody hasn't messed with your brand or interacted with your brand for 6 to 9 months, that's almost like a lapse to close to an expired customer, where it's past the point of a reactivation, where it's almost like considering them as a new customer. How do you think of kind of returning customers, Cooper? So I've already activated this customer, and then is there like bands of time that you start to walk them through to understand, like, how do I market to these people? Because I've just had so many brands like, well, we have 1,500 customers. I'm like, yeah, but 500 of them haven't bought anything from you in a year. Like, I don't really, like, those people are gone, man. Like, if they haven't interacted with your brand for over a year, I don't know how you kind of quote unquote reactivate these people. I think there's a certain aspect of, like, maybe there's you give them 30 days to consume the product, and then that 30 to 60, 30 to 90, you can reactivate them. and then they get into this at-risk category, and then they're gone. How do you see like the returning customer cohort, Cooper? Like what are your thoughts there?
Well, and I'll throw a curveball in it. We've got two of our brands, or two biggest brands, are on Amazon, and they're in Sephora. And so that alone, we may have had somebody who didn't interact on the D2C site for 18 months. They're still a huge fan of the brand. We may just not know it because we don't have that data. And so what I would say is, for us, we think about this returning customer bit in a little bit of a journey. And it's kind of, obviously first order, then you've got second, third, and fourth. All right. At second, third, and fourth, there's a whole different play that we're looking at. And this is by brand, except for the one brand we do have subscription on. So this is like 2, 3, and 4, and then 5 and beyond. Because what we've seen over and over, if there's a 5 and beyond, sometimes it's very sporadic. Sometimes they're hitting us on holidays or big sales, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I mean, people come out of the woodwork, right, for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and you think they're gone when you look at them on an individual level, but realistically, they're probably buying at Sephora or on Amazon when they need the onesie product. I mean, I look at the way I've interacted with a few key brands in my own life. Like if I need a massive order, I'm going to the D2C site because they got 30% off. You buy 3 or more. But otherwise, I'm going to buy the one product off Amazon. And, in a consumables world, how often are you ever consuming on the exact same pace to where your order structure is going to make it favorable for you, the consumer, to order on the D2C site? And I think that's when you're building a brand, those are things you got to be aware of. You got to be aware of, like, where's my customer going for the one product? Where's my customer coming for? I mean, look, we've got a hair care brand, shampoo and conditioner, right? It's expensive. It's a nice, really high-end brand with a unique value prop. So they may come for one, but they're probably going to Amazon for the one product. But if they're coming for 2, they're probably ordering from us, but they're going to wait till that sale happens. So for us, to go back to your original question, like that journey for us of like, once they hit 5, we're pretty sure they're locked in with us, whether they're buying at Sephora, Sephora.com, or they're buying through our brand sites. It just depends, but we'll see a number of those customers. They're looking for that big sale because they're familiar with our brand. They know our brand. They know what we're about. And so they're going to do things a little bit differently, but we just have to be willing to be smart about that and recognize where those customers may be hitting. Because if you just look at one channel, you're going to be missing out on an opportunity to really understand your customer. So I would just say, big picture, we try to get folks, if they're buying from us 5 times, we know they're in with us. And there is a very small percentage of customers that get the 5, but that's because some of our brands are still relatively new. I mean, JVN launched 2 years ago. They're coming up on their 2-year anniversary, I think, around September 2023. So, right, it's still not a lot of time for all these customers to go through that cycle.
No, it does. And it's funny because you must be looking at my notes. That is actually my cutoff as well, where I consider anybody that makes 5 purchases within a year kind of in that evangelist category, where ideally I want to move as many people. I almost think of it as like shifting, like you said, a journey, and how many people can I get? Because usually the second purchase is either really difficult or really easy, which is kind of like paradoxical. But that second purchase, but really if you can get them to the third, fourth, and then ideally 5 and up, that's when to your point, I think those people are satiated. They're really awesome. They're in the brand. They're the kind of 4 lifers, the ride or dies. And so how do I graduate these people more and more and more? And shameless plug, but I'm doing some stuff with Triple in terms of we have this really cool data platform. And now you can actually plot how these actually progress, where you can see you essentially want certain cohorts to shrink. So you want like your expired cohorts to shrink, you want your lapsed cohorts to shrink, and you want these kind of evangelists and people getting close to the evangelisms to grow. And so you take I almost think of it in a way of like raw material. So the new customer is like this raw material, and how can you refine them and get them to the evangelist stage as quickly as possible? And the other thing and I want to hear your thoughts on this too, Ash, but the other thing, Cooper, that you said that I thought was really brilliant was I've seen a lot of cohort data where Black Friday, Cyber Monday customers are actually fantastic, but they just buy the year's worth. And I'm sure you see this in Avi as well, where they'll just buy the year's worth of stuff on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So if you look at them in terms of cohorts, they're actually really valuable. It just takes almost 360 days or so to get more money out of them because they're essentially making this one bulk purchase at this one time that they stock up for the year, and then they wait a whole another year. So to your point, it is a quote unquote valuable customer in terms of LTV, but when you take that time vector in, it's like, man, I know I can't get any money out of this rock for another year. So it's you just need to be very cognizant in terms of acquisition there, because if you pay for those customers, you're going to get them, you're going to get all this money out of them, but it doesn't matter what marketing you do, unless you have some semblance of a gifting vertical, they've already saturated their personal consumption. Ash, how do you guys think in terms of that, the returning customers? Do you guys see them differently? Do you have time cutoffs, purchase parameters? What do you guys look at?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to unpack because you guys said a lot of great things. Cooper, I kind of want to also just like real life example of what you said, right? Is for me has always been Truff, right? Like I can go online and I can shop it, and like when I run out of a bottle, I can go and I don't want to pay the shipping, right? Because I know that on my next trip to Whole Foods, I can go and pick that up, and sometimes it's actually cheaper there, right? But on their end, in their systems, on their like Shopify account, I've probably bought from them twice. But now I've probably bought them at Whole Foods or even Amazon or whatever it is, like countless times after that, right? So, and then when it comes down to, there's a weird group of people that like also say like, oh, I don't want my brand on Amazon, right? Are you shipping as quickly as Amazon is? Like for us, I can honestly say we're not, right? Like it is one of the biggest issues, but it is costly, right? So for us to maintain costs and to operate, we're not offering the fastest shipping possible unless the customer wants to pay for it, right? So I would imagine there's a lot of customers, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen comments in the community. It's like, well, I love Avi, but like it takes way too long for it to get to me. I'm always just going to shop on Amazon now, right? So now you have to like include that in understanding what your marketing is actually doing, what the retention looks like, right? And that and Amazon is a black box. You're never going to get that data, but you have to understand that it's happening, right? By looking at the qualitative data. Now, in terms of where we see like these like drop-off points, it's because these things are happening, it's very tough to decide what that actually looks like, right? What ends up happening is that when we do product launches, we try to do those exclusively on the website first so that there is a reason to come back directly to the website and shop and stock up whenever you need to, right? Cooper, you also mentioned like people will come to the website to stock up when there is a sale or whatever it is. Rabah, to your point, Black Friday is always going to be that time, right? You have customers that are going to come in and literally buy every single flavor. And we see in our community the pictures of like their entire closet stocked with Avi. It's like, yeah, I'm glad. And I'm glad you came and shopped as much as you possibly could in that moment, but you're pulling revenue forward, right? So that's where you kind of need to, I think a lot of these nuances are less, and I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think these nuances are less important if you are profitable on the first order, because anything that comes after is gravy on top, right? Now, if you're thinking about it when you're not profitable on the first order, then I think it's like, okay, you really need to understand where the LTV is coming in at what time frame it is. So I don't know. Thoughts on that? Take, good, bad? I don't know.
I think you made an interesting point about shipping, right? I mean, you talk about profitable on the first order. Shipping kills probably most of us on that first order.
Yeah.
Right? Coming off the site. But I think you're right. I mean, that's a great point, Ash. If you are profitable on your first order, there's a whole lot of ills that could be forgiven when you make profit on that first order.
It's like drinking from the Holy Grail. It gives your business eternal life.
Yeah, 2 years ago, what were we? We were all revenue, grow revenue, right? Now it's, we've all got to turn to profit. And that's the right call. And I think as an economy and when there's cheap money, we lose sight of that a little bit. But that's market corrects and we all got to correct with it.
Incentives are really strong. And when you were seeing people getting bought up, people getting huge secondaries, like, yeah, dude, let's just raise a bunch of money, get this up into the right revenue curve. And like, who cares about the cost basis? Because there's money in the walls, or I just go walk around, San Francisco with the term sheet and somebody's going to sign it and wire me $3 million and then let's go. And that's just not the current environment now. And in terms of at least the market that a lot of us play in terms of the D2C brands, I don't really think D2C brands are made to scale exponentially. Like, I can't really think of a huge exponential. Like, probably Lululemon's one of the most successful D2C brands. You wouldn't consider them D2C now because they have a bunch of retail stores, but they've just been trucking along at like 20, 30% year over year. And like, if you show that to a VC, nobody's putting money into that, especially too, because a lot of the costs scale versus something like a triple whale where we have this fairly fixed cost structure, super high margins, and you can get this crazy growth curve. I don't know. And that might be a bit of a hot take, but I just think D2C brands are they're not great VC targets in the traditional sense of we just want to bet on these huge growth companies that can have a fairly good grasp on their cost structure, where again, a lot of D2C costs scale as you grow, and that's not a really good attribute for an investment target. You want to have some sort of arbitrage there. So I don't know, maybe that's a little bit of a hot take, but let's switch subjects a little bit and bring some happiness into this. Black Friday or Cyber Monday, a holiday that we all know and love. How do you think about it, Cooper? How are your brands approaching it? Are you guys starting November 1? Are you only doing a weekend? Are you doing a week? Because we've seen a little bit of that, right? Where I don't want to say greedy because that sounds like a pejorative, but there's been this elongation of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where when I was younger, I'm old, but when I was younger, it was literally Black Friday, and then Cyber Monday started to come around, and now it's like Black Friday, Cyber Monday week, and then I was talking to Selena, and she was like the Power Five, or there was some like little five thing where like it's the norm is extrapolated across a week. How do you think about that? Because I have some very probably not or lukewarm takes on discounting where I don't think they're bad, but I think that they can be kind of like that heroin. Like once you touch it, you just want to go more and more and more, and then you go down this discount vortex. So I guess, Cooper, to you, how do you think of Black Friday, Cyber Monday? What time durations are you guys looking to run sales, and what are your thoughts in terms of discounting?
I got to be a little bit careful here, but the reality of Black Friday, Cyber Monday is it is elongated, just like you said. And last year, based on the business, we had some that started decently early from Black Friday, right?
Yep.
It's the week before. And so as the brands have been thinking about this year, they are considering, do they go as deep discount? Do they? Yeah. I think another big one for us that we haven't talked about, nor did I include on anything on the front end with you guys, is GWPs. And how did GWPs possibly help drive your AOV? But really the question is, if you have a GWP, so GWP being a gift with purchase, so the brands are really asking themselves, how do they leverage a GWP, the gift with purchase, to drive AOV towards higher AOVs? And what I would say is this: you can do one of two things with a gift with purchase. And this is true across our brands. And this is something that I think is a relatively new insight, but for every brand out there, you can either drive your AOV or you can look to expand a consumer's product trial to where you're hoping to get them to repeat a future product, right? So you can either drive the AOV or try to drive repeat future purchases of a different product. So what we have found in that is that the brands are going to be very strategic in how they think about it, using that information as we looked at historical data, which every brand should, and we look at specifically what each brand tried in a prior year from the discount level, the GWP level. So those are the two things kind of driving our holiday thinking, is a gift with purchase and hot discount rate, right? Because really at the end of the day, those are the two things you can leverage in this space. But with a GWP, for everybody out there, just you can either try to drive that AOV higher or you can look for a future repeat.
Man, I love that. I want to hear your thoughts on this, Melwani, because I think you guys are actually taking some of this tact for your Black Friday, Cyber Monday strategy. But one of my favorite things about that as well is you get to arbitrage a little bit, because you can start to find it might be not necessarily a core product, but like an ancillary product that then supports the consumption of the core product. And what's great about that is usually you can find something that's high margin, but high perceived value. And so something might cost you $5 in COGS. You say it's $20, we're going to give it to you for free. This customer thinks they're getting this $20 shaker bottle for free, and it only costs you $5. So not only is there impact on margin, you're also increasing the ability to consume, because now they have this beautiful shaker bottle to make their collagen shakes in. and you aren't really losing that much in terms of actual economics because you're driving $20 of perceived value that they get to add into their cart, but it's really only costing you $5. Couldn't endorse the gift with purchase more. I think that to me is absolutely the path. And then the other path, to your point, Cooper, is some sort of like smart discounting where as you buy more, then there's some sort of semblance of a discount. And so that way you do get those bigger AOVs. You might take a little bit of an economic hit, but if you do the math right, it nets out in your favor. Couldn't agree with you more with the gift with purchase. Love that. Melwani, what are your thoughts?
So gift with purchase, this is something that we've been doing for years, right? But there's a right way to do it. I think when it comes down to it, it's really perceived value. We've had gifts that seemingly have had high perceived value, and we've had gifts that are like, I don't give a
Yep.
I don't give a gifts are the ones that are not going to move the needle, but it's how you portray it, right? So I think the brands that have done a really good job at this is Athletic Greens.
Yep.
And Bloom, right? So like that shaker, not shaker, but the bottle that you get with Athletic Greens, it's that like glass bottle. It's heavy. You feel that it's quality, right? The content that they like get with that bottle, with your shake, with the greens powders, like, and the way that they display it on the site, it's like, oh, this is like premium, right? That to me is what's going to move the needle.
Yep.
We've had like these motivational water bottles where, I don't know if you guys seen it, it has like the times on it, the timestamps where it's like, all right, every hour you should drink or whatever it is. That for us cost us like $3-4, right? But perceived value, it's like, oh, I'm getting this massive water bottle from Avi. Great, that's what I want. But then you'll have like these small things where it's like a funnel or like even the froth, or like, yeah, they sound great in theory, but like they're cheap products. And it's like, am I going to spend an extra $50 to get a frother that I can get for $5 like on Amazon, right? You have to, like, the perceived value is the main thing here. So we're kind of moving back. Instead of offering like 3 or 4 free gifts, we're going to offer that one like really well-made gift that sits at this tier. It's like, you got to hit this tier to get this bottle, right? And that to me is going to drive AOV more than like, all right, we'll get this at this, get this at this, get this at this. And it's all like a bunch of like goodie bag. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think that's what we're going to do this year. Second, to answer your first question, I think we're going to go and do the week of. And again, this may just be like a business because of where the business is at with Walmart and everything. It's like, we just need to focus our efforts elsewhere right now. So that week, like, instead of doing a whole month like we usually do, focusing on this week will probably be the best bet. And then secondly, we'll probably do a flavor expansion, right? So like a new flavor of a returning product. So like there is something new to come back to. And so I don't want to shove this sale down their throats the entire month. It's like, hey, we got this new free gift. We got this new flavor. Buy this week and like be done with it. And then I think just hit, at least for us, hit January 1st like flying. So that's the way that we're approaching it. We'll have a sale, free gift, new product, and I think keep it simple.
Yeah, Ash, I just got to talk, like, your comment about the perceived value is critical to the success of the GWP. I've seen that even in my own consumption of Genius brand, right? They have multiple products, but right, you get one product that, right, maybe it's the throwaway, but then another one, like, hey, I've come back and become a big fan of that product, right? And so one thing we have done in one of our brands is actually given the consumer a choice of A or B GWP. And that has given that consumer the choice to choose the value that it would be for them. And I thought that was actually pretty enticing as a consumer, like, oh, you're letting me choose between A or B? Man, that's like, for the consumer journey, that invited more loyalty, that invited, greater adoption, but then it was a product that I'd been wanting to try. And then you come back and repeat for it.
I'm curious where in the journey that sits.
When you mean like where in the journey, like new versus returning?
No, so like literally like when is that option to pick the gift? Like when does that show up? Is that like pre-checkout, like in the car?
I think it's a great question, right? When do you offer it? Well, and some of it, I think we've definitely experienced both, and I can't really speak to which one is better, but you can offer it kind of as on a returning, right? Your email marketing, offering that to a consumer. But then obviously there's the after checkout or at checkout, right? Hey, you're eligible for. But I think if you're going to do something at checkout, you certainly want to speak to it on the site on the front, because that's going to drive that consumer maybe to increase, oh, if I buy a second product, then I can get this GWP option, right? Because that's what, if I'm there for a 1 and I see if I buy 2, oh, then I have an option for a third, right? That might spur that AOV on. So I guess we're offering it multiple places, and it's completely dependent upon the brand. But yeah, I don't know, man. What are your thoughts? Guys, did I break up at all there?
No. That just too much knowledge to internalize. Overloading the computers here. CPU's frying. No, I think you guys are absolutely right. The other thing that I think can be really interesting if you can do the GWP correctly is it, 1, helps consume the product, and then 2, it can be a reminder of the brand. And so with that shaker bottle, the shaker bottle might be on the counter, or if, for example, if it's like makeup or something, it might be like a way to display your makeup in a prettier way on your counter. And then you can get these ways to infiltrate the brand to then be this omnipresent reminder of that you need to buy it, you love it, your friends see it. So, but yeah, I think the no notes, you guys are two of the just smartest. I love doing this stuff. We're pumping up against time, Cooper, but I do want to talk a little bit about your speaking up your game. Give us kind of the cliff notes there, and then is there anything that you would suggest people that struggle with public speaking start to do? How do they get better at public speaking? Let us know.
First of all, man, I'm honored at the question. And yeah, so Speaking Up Your Game is a workplace public speaking coaching group that basically started about 5 years ago. I've done it on the side a lot. I do have an online course, not to pump that, but what I would say is this: I'm going to give away my best value right here. And if you are someone out there that struggles with confidence in speaking, there's really a couple things going on. First, you're worried about your reputation at the end of the day, right? So that you feel a reputation risk. The second thing is you might feel a financial risk, right? You're going in for a big sale. It's got a huge commission, right? So you may be feeling some financial risk. The third thing that's impacting your confidence is around the negative self-talk you're doing, right? That imposter syndrome, all that stuff we talk about today. But you're just letting negative self-talk eat you alive, right? So reputation risk, financial risk, and then just the negative self-talk, right? We let those dials, like a stove dial, get really hot in our lives. And what I would say is this: when we turn our focus to the value that we're bringing an audience, right? So 1, that's audience driven. So you got to understand the value to the audience. When you understand that value, and value in speaking is created by these 3 things: by being relevant to the audience, by having a clear message and well delivered. And so 5 years of coaching, I've coached 200 people one-on-one. We've had some online course sales that have driven some value for some folks. But at the end of the day, your nerves is tied to you not focusing on the value enough, and you can create more value by being relevant, clear, and well delivered. And man, that's the program right there. So if hopefully, Rabah, Ash, if you ever are up on the stage and you're kind of getting anxious about it, just get back to the value of what you're trying to do, and that will be impactful. But yeah, it's certainly a passion point of mine, but appreciate the ask.
Amazing. Very well said. Very well said. Cooper, this has been fantastic, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I will give you a shout out next time I'm in Atlanta. We actually threw an event there a few months ago, and there's actually an incredibly vibrant D2C community. I didn't know. It's a sleeper out there in good old Georgia. How can people connect with you, Cooper? How can people get more involved? This time is yours, my friend.
Gosh, appreciate that. Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, Cooper Camak, Camak. I'm the only one out there. Would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Love to talk. Listen, I'm always open to talking shop, whether that's public speaking in the workplace or really just insights and analytics, and just love this space. Love what you guys are doing, and just appreciate the chance to be on the show today. I learned so much just by being a part of this and listening to Ash, to you, and Rabah, to you guys. Like, you guys are just huge knowledge, just troves, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, appreciate it, man. I'm gonna have to walk out the door sideways. My head's getting all big. Melwani, give us some updates on Walmart, Mentor Pass, chew on this. You got Paul Rangers coming up. This is quite the reel for you. So let the people know.
Walmart, man. Amazon's getting mad at us. They're like hiding our buy boxes on Amazon because Walmart's got the cheaper price now. So it's really annoying. But yeah, check us out. Chewonthis.io. Ron and I have a podcast to talk about what we're doing at Avi. Season 2, we've been talking to a bunch of operators and how they're handling their SaaS companies or even D2C businesses. So learning a lot from them. season finale coming soon with Harley from Shopify, which will be a great episode. So tune into that. Follow me on Twitter at ashfinmelwani. Also on MentorPass, Q4 is coming up. So if you need help structuring offers, ad account creatives, let me know. And if you ever drive past a Walmart, please go in there, take a picture for me, buy some collagen. I'll reimburse you. I'll Venmo you back. Just support the business. But yeah, that's it for me.
Amazing. Go get you some Avi collagen. Go get you some Jonathan Van Ness shampoo and conditioner. Make that hair look all sparkly and amazing. And then go get you some Triple Well if you're not already riding the triple train. You can go to triplewell.com. We actually have a Founders Dash or Forever Free plan, so you can get that today. We also have a fantastic newsletter that goes out every Tuesday, Thursday called Whale Mail. You subscribe right at triplewell.com/whale mail. And then if you want to see Cooper Camac's wonderful outfit today, you can actually watch all of our podcasts on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/triplewhale. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to leave a comment and then tweet at Ash or I for guests, topics, anything. This show is yours. We're here for you people. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in. That's another ad spin in the books, Ash. Let's do it, baby. Cooper, thank you again so much. Enjoy Georgia. If you're ever out in Austin, give me a shout. And Melwani, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for all your wisdom, knowledge, humility, and awesomeness. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.